I was 35 years old, with a successful career as a software engineer, a beautiful home I had bought last year, and an amazing fiancée named Abigail. We were planning our wedding for next spring, and my life seemed perfect. I had always been close with my parents, especially my father, Thomas. He was my hero growing up. So, when I saw his vintage Mustang parked in my driveway that Wednesday afternoon when I should have been at work, I was confused, not suspicious. I had no idea my entire life was about to shatter. Before I share how my perfect life crumbled that day, drop a comment telling me where you are watching from. Hit that subscribe button if you have ever trusted someone who did not deserve it. Growing up, my father Thomas was everything I wanted to be. A self-made businessman who built a thriving construction company from nothing. He commanded respect wherever he went. At 58, he still maintained the strong physique from years of physical labor before he moved into management. My mother, Elaine, 55, had always been the supportive partner behind his success, though sometimes I worried about how dependent she seemed on him. I followed a different path. Computers fascinated me from an early age, and I threw myself into learning everything about them. After college and several years climbing the corporate ladder, I landed a senior position at a major tech firm developing security software. The salary allowed me to purchase my dream home last year, a beautiful 4-bedroom house with a view of the mountains and enough space for the family Abigail and I planned to start. I met Abigail 3 years ago at a technology conference in San Francisco. She worked for a marketing firm that specialized in tech clients, and we connected immediately over drinks at the networking mixer. At 30, she was beautiful, intelligent, and shared many of my interests. Our relationship progressed quickly, and within a year we were living together. When I proposed, I spent 3 months searching for the perfect ring. I ultimately used diamonds from my grandmother's ring, having them reset into a more modern design that still honored my family heritage. Abigail cried when I got down on one knee during our vacation to Maine. The wedding was set for next spring at a vineyard outside the city. Looking back, there were signs I should have noticed. Over the past 2 months, Abigail had been working later than usual. She missed several of our regular date nights, claiming client emergencies. Sometimes she would not answer my calls, then text back hours later with vague explanations. I trusted her completely, so these small inconsistencies never registered as red flags. My father and I maintained a close relationship throughout my adult life. Every Sunday morning, we went fishing at the lake just like we had since I was 10 years old. He taught me everything from tying fishing knots to negotiating a raise. When business problems arose, he was always my first call. He seemed genuinely happy when I introduced him to Abigail, often inviting her to family dinners and asking about her work. One thing that should have alarmed me was how my father started dropping by our house unexpectedly over the past few months. He would call Abigail directly, instead of me claiming he was in the neighborhood and wanted to see our renovations or drop off something my mother sent. Several times he came by when he knew I was at work. Abigail explained he was helping with surprise wedding arrangements, and I believed her. That Wednesday, I was supposed to be in an all-day client meeting downtown. The client canceled 2 hours in something about needing to revise their requirements before proceeding. With a rare free afternoon, I decided to head home and surprise Abigail by taking her to lunch. She had mentioned working from home that day. As I turned onto our street, I immediately recognized my father's vintage red Mustang in our driveway. The car was his pride and joy restored with his own hands decades ago. My first thought was genuine concern. Had something happened with my mother? It was unusual for him to visit unannounced in the middle of a workday. I parked on the street, not wanting to block him in if there was an emergency. Entering through the front door, I called out but received no answer. The house was quiet except for faint sounds I could not immediately identify coming from upstairs. Walking up the stairs, the sounds became clearer. Voices, movement unmistakable in their nature. My brain refused to process what my ears were telling me until I reached the doorway of our bedroom. There on the bed where Abigail and I slept every night, where we had talked about our future children, were my father and my fiancée. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. For several seconds I stood frozen, watching them scramble to cover themselves as they noticed me. Something primal took over me in that moment. 30 years of admiration and respect for my father vanished in an instant, replaced by a rage I had never experienced before. I lunged toward him, grabbing him by the throat and throwing him against the wall. Abigail screamed, clutching sheets around herself, but I barely heard her. "Chandler, stop. I can explain." My father gasped, trying to fend off my blows. But there was nothing to explain. I had seen everything with my own eyes. I am not proud of what happened next. I have never been a violent person, but something broke inside me. My fist connected with his face repeatedly. I felt his nose break under my knuckles, saw blood streaming down his chin. When he fell to the floor, I kicked him in the ribs, hearing a sickening crack. Abigail tried to intervene, pulling at my arm. "Please, it just happened. We never meant to hurt you." I turned to her, not laying a hand on her, but with such fury in my eyes that she backed away. "How long?" I demanded. "How fucking long has this been going on?" Neither would answer directly, which told me everything. This was no one-time mistake. They had been betraying me for months, possibly since before the engagement. The neighbors must have heard the commotion because minutes later, police sirens wailed in the distance. My father, bloodied and clutching his ribs, managed to stand. "I will have you arrested for this," he threatened weakly. "Go ahead," I replied coldly. "Tell them what you were doing when I found you." The police arrived, separating us. After taking statements from all parties, they pulled me aside. "Sir, do you want to press charges for the home invasion?" I almost laughed at the irony. They saw my father as the victim. I declined, wanting them all out of my house. The officers advised my father to seek medical attention, but made no arrests. Abigail, now dressed, slipped out during the commotion, taking only her purse and phone. After everyone left, I stood in my bedroom, staring at the bed. Our bed. I dragged it outside, doused it with lighter fluid from the grill, and set it on fire in the backyard. The neighbors stared but kept their distance. I sat watching it burn until long after dark, ignoring the dozens of calls and messages from Abigail. The next morning, I called a locksmith and changed every lock in the house. I packed all of Abigail's belongings into garbage bags and left them on the front porch with a note telling her she had 24 hours before I donated everything. Her engagement ring I sold to a jeweler across town, not caring about the significant loss in value. For 48 hours, my phone buzzed constantly with messages from Abigail. Tearful apologies, claims that it was a terrible mistake, that she truly loved me. I blocked her number, her email, and all her social media accounts. Thomas did not attempt to contact me directly, though I later learned he was hospitalized briefly for 2 broken ribs and facial fractures. After 3 days of sitting alone in my house, barely eating or sleeping, I decided I needed to see my mother. Despite everything, I thought she would be my rock, the one person who would help me through this nightmare. I drove to my childhood home, rehearsing how to tell her what had happened. She opened the door wearing a concerned expression. "Chandler, what happened to you? You look terrible." I broke down as soon as I stepped inside, tears I had been holding back for days finally flowing. Between sobs, I started explaining what I had discovered. Before I could finish, her expression changed from concern to something harder. "Your father already told me what happened," she said coldly. My blood ran cold. "What exactly did he tell you? That you attacked him in some kind of jealous rage? That you accused him and Abigail of improper behavior?" "Chandler," he said, "you have been acting paranoid lately, seeing things that are not there." I could not believe what I was hearing. "Mom, I walked in on them, in my bed. There was no misunderstanding." She shook her head firmly. "Your father would never do that to me or to you. He thinks you might need professional help. The stress of the wedding, perhaps. Or those violent video games you have always played." The second betrayal hit almost as hard as the first. My own mother choosing to believe her husband's lies over her son's truth. But what came next cut even deeper. "You have always been jealous of your father's success," she continued, her voice taking on a cruel edge I had never heard before. "Always trying to prove yourself better than him with your computers and your fancy job. Maybe this is your way of tearing him down, because you cannot stand seeing him respected while you—" "Stop," I interrupted, my voice breaking. "Just stop. I cannot believe you would think so little of me." I left without another word. her accusations following me out the door. On the drive home, I made a decision. If my own family could betray me so completely, I would be better off without them. I went completely no contact with both my parents and Abigail. The next weeks were the darkest of my life. I canceled our wedding venue, forfeiting thousands in deposits. I returned gifts from the few early well-wishers. I took emergency leave from work, unable to focus on anything. Some friends tried to reach out, but many kept their distance, unsure who to believe. My father had connections throughout the community, and I later learned he had been spreading his version of events, painting me as mentally unstable. I spent days questioning my own reality. Had I somehow misinterpreted what I saw? Was I losing my mind? The gaslighting nearly worked until I found a text on my cloud backup from Abigail to my father, arranging one of their meetings. The evidence reinforced my resolve to cut them from my life entirely. 3 months passed in a blur of therapy appointments and mindless routines. My therapist helped me understand I was experiencing both betrayal trauma and the grief of losing my family and relationship simultaneously. I made the difficult decision to request a transfer to our company's Seattle office, needing distance from the town where every street corner held memories. I sold my house at a loss, not caring about the money, just wanting to be free of the space where my life had imploded. My new apartment in Seattle was smaller, but had views of Puget Sound that gave me a sense of peace I desperately needed. I joined a rock climbing gym, finding that physical exertion helped quiet my mind. Slowly, I started making new friends who knew nothing of my past. Just as I was beginning to feel some semblance of normalcy, I received a call from Jackson, one of the few friends who had stayed in contact after the fallout. "Chandler, I thought you should hear this from a friend, rather than through the grapevine," he began hesitantly. "Abigail is pregnant." The news hit me like a physical blow. My first panic thought was that the child might be mine. We had certainly not been careful in the weeks before I discovered the affair. How far along, I managed to ask. About 3 months from what Maria told me. Maria was Jackson's wife, who worked at the same marketing firm as Abigail. The timing, well, it matches up with when everything happened. A quick mental calculation confirmed what I already suspected. This was my father's child, not mine. The revelation brought a strange mix of relief and disgust. Jackson continued with information that gave me no pleasure, but did provide validation. "There is more. Your father apparently left town with some younger woman from his office. He has not been seen in weeks. He abandoned your mother and Abigail. So my father had moved on to yet another affair, leaving behind both my mother and his pregnant mistress. The man I had once idolized was revealed to be nothing but a serial cheater, incapable of loyalty to anyone." "How is my mother taking it?" I asked, surprised by my own concern after months of silence. Jackson hesitated. "Not well, from what I hear. She is trying to keep up appearances, but people are talking. The truth about what really happened with you has started coming out. Some folks have been reaching out to me, asking how to contact you to apologize." I thanked Jackson for the information, but asked him not to share my new contact details. I was not ready to reconnect with my past yet. However, fate had other plans. 2 days later, my phone lit up with a call from an unknown number with my hometown area code. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Chandler, please do not hang up." My mother's voice sounded thin and broken, nothing like the confident woman who had accused me of lying months before. "I need to talk to you." What followed was a series of desperate voicemails and text messages over the next several days. I read and listened to each one but did not respond. She admitted she had been wrong. She begged for forgiveness. She explained how Thomas had manipulated her, playing on her insecurities and using their 30-year marriage as proof of his character. It was her final message that broke through my resolve. "The doctor says my heart episode was minor, but it scared me. I do not want to die with you hating me, son. I was wrong. So terribly wrong." I called the hospital in my hometown and confirmed she had indeed been admitted for what they termed a cardiac event. Not a full heart attack, but a warning sign brought on by extreme stress. Despite everything, I could not ignore her medical crisis. I arranged a video call with her doctor present, who confirmed she was physically stable but emotionally distraught. Seeing her on the screen, haired, disheveled face drawn looking a decade older than when I last saw her, stirred complicated emotions. She sobbed upon seeing my face. "Chandler, I am so sorry. Thomas left 3 weeks ago. He emptied our accounts. Then Abigail came to the house showing me proof of their relationship. The timeline matched exactly what you told me. I should have believed you. My own son." I remained silent, letting her speak. "I understand if you never forgive me," she continued. "But I needed you to know that I know the truth now, and I am so ashamed." After our call, I spent hours walking along the Seattle waterfront processing my feelings. The vindication brought no joy, only a hollow ache where my family had once been. Still, something had shifted. 2 weeks later, I flew back to my hometown, agreeing to meet my mother at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown. She was already there when I arrived, nervously shredding a napkin. The physical changes shocked me more in person. Her hair had grayed considerably, and she had lost weight she could not afford to lose. When she saw me, she half rose from her seat but seemed unsure if she could approach. I sat across from her, maintaining a physical distance that matched my emotional one. "How are you feeling health-wise, I mean?" "The doctors say I will be fine if I take care of myself," she replied. "Chandler, I do not know where to begin." For the next hour, she poured out everything. How my father had come home that day with his injuries, claiming I had attacked him in a delusional rage. How he had spent months convincing her I was unstable, jealous, prone to exaggeration. How she had chosen to believe him because the alternative was too painful to consider. "I failed you," she said simply. "As a mother, my first instinct should have been to protect my child, to believe you. Instead, I protected my own feelings, my own life as I knew it." I nodded, acknowledging her words without offering absolution. "What happens now? With you and him, divorce papers have been filed. The house is being sold to pay debts he left behind. I am staying with your aunt for now." She hesitated. "Have you heard about Abigail?" "I know she is pregnant," I replied flatly. "She comes by sometimes. I think she is as lost as I am." My mother looked down at her coffee. "I do not speak to her much. I cannot look at her without seeing how I failed you. Before leaving, I told her I needed time. I would not cut her off completely again, but rebuilding trust would be a long, uncertain process." She accepted this with tearful gratitude, seemingly shocked I was willing to give her any chance at all. In the year that followed, I rebuilt my life piece by piece. My career flourished in Seattle, where I eventually became team lead for a major security project. I found an apartment with a view of the mountains that reminded me each morning that there was beauty beyond human betrayal. My therapy continued, helping me understand that forgiveness was not about excusing actions, but freeing myself from their hold. My mother and I established a cautious new relationship. Weekly phone calls became our routine. She attended therapy herself, working through her codependency issues that had allowed my father to manipulate her so completely. She found part-time work at a local bookstore, her first job in decades, and slowly rebuilt her sense of self-worth. Through mutual connections, I learned that my father had abandoned his younger girlfriend in Arizona and was now somewhere in Florida, already involved with someone new. Abigail had given birth to a daughter and was raising her alone in a nearby town. Neither attempted to contact me again, which was for the best. The holiday season presented challenges, as old family traditions highlighted their absence. I joined a group of fellow orphaned friends for Thanksgiving dinner, finding unexpected joy in creating new rituals. For Christmas, I invited my mother to Seattle. Her visit was awkward at times, but healing for us both. She marveled at my new life and seemed genuinely happy that I was thriving despite everything. My personal life slowly blossomed as well. After many months of keeping people at arm's length, I met Megan through a hiking group. Our relationship developed slowly, built on honest communication and healthy boundaries. When I eventually shared my past with her, her response was compassion without pity. "What happened to you is part of your story," she said, "but it does not define you." The most profound change was internal. I no longer viewed myself as a victim, but as someone who had survived extraordinary betrayal and emerged stronger. The blind trust I once gave freely was replaced with a measured approach to relationships. I learned that blood connections did not automatically deserve loyalty. True family was defined by actions, not genetics. My mother continued her own journey of independence. She completed a computer course at the community college and moved into a small apartment she could afford on her own. During one of our calls, she told me, "For 30 years, I thought I needed your father to survive. Now I realize I am capable of so much more than just surviving." When news reached me that Abigail had moved away reportedly to be closer to her parents, I felt nothing but a distant sadness for the child who would grow up in such complicated circumstances. I wished no ill on any of them anymore. That kind of anger only poisoned the person holding it. The final step in my healing came unexpectedly. While cleaning out digital files, I found old fishing photos with my father. Instead of deleting them immediately, I looked at each one, acknowledging both the good memories and the pain of betrayal. I realized I could honor the positive influence he had on my early life, while still recognizing the deeply flawed man he turned out to be. Looking back now, I see that the collapse of my old life created space for something more authentic. The relationships I maintain today are deeper, built on mutual respect rather than obligation. I set boundaries without guilt. I recognize red flags I once would have ignored. Most importantly, I found that happiness does not require perfect circumstances or perfect people. It comes from living with integrity and surrounding yourself with those who do the same. Life continues to present challenges, but I face them with a resilience forged in fire. If you are struggling with betrayal or family trauma, know that the path forward exists even when you cannot yet see it. The journey is not about forgetting or pretending the pain never happened. It is about building something meaningful despite it. Has someone you trusted ever betrayed you? How did you move forward? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life experiences. Remember, sometimes the family we choose is more important than the one we are born into. Thank you for listening, and I wish you strength on your own journey to healing.